Good morning and welcome to the Economic Times CEO Breakfast brought to you by Accenture. Today we will chat with top leaders of India's retail sector, and the topic at hand is Retail Industry 2021 and Beyond. I am Alokesh Bhattacharyya, Senior Editor of the Economic Times, and I am joined by my colleague Suchetana.
Good morning, Alokesh. The lovely music and a video to start off the proceedings of the day, I must say. Hello, everyone. I'm Suchetana, Senior Assistant Editor with the Economic Times. I welcome all of you to today's discussion. It has been a rough few months for the world's fifth largest retail destination, but things seem to be looking up now. Is it for real? How can we make it real? These are some of the critical questions for the industry that we will be asking and talking about today.
And to take on these questions and tell us the real story of what's happening on the ground, we have a very strong group of retail CEOs joining us today. We have with us Amit Jain, Managing Director, L'Oréal India; Shital Mehta, Managing Director, Lifestyle International; Shailesh Chaturvedi, Managing Director and CEO, Arvind Fashions.
We also have with us Lalit Agarwal, Chairman and Managing Director of V-Mart Retail. He has just landed in Bihar and will be joining us very shortly. Along with him, we have Abhishek Ganguly, Managing Director, PUMA, India and Southeast Asia. Rajesh Jain, Managing Director and CEO, Lacoste India, is feeling a little unwell. We hope that he will feel better and join us. And we also have with us Vineet Ahuja, Managing Director and Marketing, Sales and Services Lead, India, Accenture.
And last but not the least, we have with us Anurag Gupta, Managing Director and Lead Strategy and Consulting for Accenture in India, and he will deliver the welcome address. But before that, we will paint a little bit of context, Chetna and I. India's retail market is estimated to reach $1.1 to $1.3 trillion by 2025 from 0.7 trillion in 2019. That's growing at a CAGR of 9 to 11%. That's fabulous growth, isn't it? Now, the twist is this number was originally for 2023, but COVID-19 has effectively moved the goalpost. And so we would all agree that India's 12 million kiranas have probably handled the pandemic better than organized retail, because they were open even during the lockdown, right, for the essentials and all. They were given that freedom. Certainly, the last 6 to 9 months have perhaps been the longest 6 to 9 months for India's retailers.
People are beginning to step into stores now, and the festive season actually brought in a lot of cheer. The Retailers Association of India says Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets achieved the same level of sales as Diwali 2019, and some markets in East and South India actually did better than Diwali of 2019. Athletic wear, including shoes, for example, grew by 20% over last Diwali, say some reports. It could be higher for some of our panelists like Abhishek Ganguly here. Work from home items also registered 15 to 18% growth.
Now the question is this growth here to stay, or is it something that we are, it's a spike just for the festive season? So we'll look forward. How is Q4 looking? What about beyond Q4? What about next fiscal, right? So if we look at some numbers, Fitch Solutions has predicted that household spending will rise 6.6% in 2021 after rising just 1.2% in 2020. But 1.2% in 2020 is still a rise, right? I mean, despite what the challenges that we have seen, and that is very, very, appreciable. Fitch also says that all major consumer spending categories will return to growth in 2021, which is great news, and should be great news to the panel here and also to the industry beyond, and all of you who are listening to us.
There are positives and negatives all around us. The budget has not introduced any new taxes, and it has massively increased capital outlay and investments in infrastructure, creating the possibility of jobs and perhaps more disposable income, boosting demand, which has been extremely lukewarm even before COVID hit our shores. But the sharp rise in fuel prices cuts into family budgets and discretionary spends. In addition, the questions around the vaccine in India and the virus refusing to go away, and perhaps new strains being discovered every other day, perhaps has led to more uncertainty.
Yeah, uncertainty is all around us, and we will look to our panel for some answers to these pressing questions. But at first, I would like to invite Anurag Gupta from Accenture for the welcome address. Anurag, over to you.
Thank you, Alokesh. Thank you, Suchetana, for a lovely kickoff. It was a great video and a great start. First of all, I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists. I know, you've all taken time out from your regular business hours to come and join us and share your perspective. Really appreciate and thank you for joining us. clearly, like Alokesh and Suchetana said, we are living in interesting times. By now, we've all sort of seen and got greater clarity on the whole, how the consumers are really moving, what the trends are, what their channel preferences are. So clearly, there is a need for, as retail businesses, for all the businesses to see how to continue to serve these consumers with the best experiences, given that there is such a tectonic shift that's happened. What we were not expecting in terms of even some of our consumers, like Alokesh said, a lot of things we would have expected the pace of change to be much slower. But over the last 9 months, it's been the longest 9 months. Consumers have also evolved. Consumers have become digitally savvier. Even consumers from tier 2, tier 3 towns, consumers who would be more comfortable with vernacular have also come on. So clearly, we're seeing changes in terms of how consumers are behaving. And as retail businesses, we do need to respond to be able to offer similar experiences. I think one of the things that this pandemic has really taught us is the need to build in agility and resilience into our businesses. Given the kind of shifts that we are seeing, how as retail businesses, how our organizations can build in the agility to respond to consumers earlier, which were, let's say, a couple of channels. But as we were talking, like Shital said, there are possibly now 8 or 10 channels. There could be the social commerce, there could be curbside deliveries. So clearly there's an explosion of choices and experiences that consumers are expecting. In fact, yesterday I was talking to somebody in the food service space, and they said, look, if consumers don't want to dine in because of safety concerns, when we are now enabling them to actually park their cars outside the dine-in restaurant and just place an order on their app, and it'll get delivered to their car. Now, is that a customer journey that we were actually, envisaging 9 months back? Possibly not. So clearly, there is a need for agility and resilience. There is obviously a need to rebuild the customer experience across each of these channels. There is obviously the fundamentals of retail, however, will not change. The role of the brand, the product and the merchandise that we offer, the quality, all of those fundamentals will remain as it is, but there are newer capabilities required for organizations to really service these consumers. The role of data, technology, partnerships. Would you want to build all these capabilities in-house, or would you want to explore partnerships? How do you now, clearly every part of business is becoming data-driven. So what kind of capabilities do we want to build around that is something that we will all as businesses have to think about. Reskilling our own employees in our organizations. Now, if we do have to service our customers across so many channels, how do we reskill our own employees? Do we hire more skills? Those are the kind of questions that sort of come to mind. So look forward to a very, very engaging discussion and perspective from such eminent CEOs we have on the panel, and would be really good to get their perspective on the same.
Thank you so much, Anurag, for that welcome address. Of course, the key thing these days are the 2 Ds, data and digital, and of course, building business resilience. And so we'll take these questions, some of the questions to the panel now, questions about how they built business resilience and what are the lessons that they learned from COVID. So my first question is to Amit. This is the first part of the discussion where we talk about COVID lessons. So my question to you is, which part of your business has COVID actually reshaped? Give us also a global perspective. And, the PLI that was announced by the government in the budget, will it help it reduce cost of manufacturing for your industry and for the industry segment that you operate in?
Welcome to the discussion.
Morning, Lalit.
Hi, good morning.
Amit, over to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, somebody, as a lead up to this discussion asked me, what am I doing here as mainly, a beauty product business. But I just want to clarify that we have our own boutiques in the luxury business, as well as we work very closely with the entire salon channel, more than 40,000 of them. Yeah. So retail is the lifeblood of L'Oréal. So having said that, what are our lessons? So, at L'Oréal, we have a simple saying in French which says, "Seize what begins." And we believe that over the last 9 to 11 months, depending on what part of the world you're in, there's been more change than we have seen in the last 10 years. And there have been massive learnings which are coming all over. The biggest, of course, is with the consumer, the fluid consumer. So nothing can be taken for granted. The consumer now is truly omni-channel, and I'm sure my colleagues here on the panel will be able to talk much better about it. But what we are seeing is a consumer who's operating seamlessly online and offline. And that's driven by their shopping needs and their missions. The other big learning which is there is in terms of products. As consumers are confronted by the realities of the pandemic, they are fleeing to safety. Yeah, bigger brands, safer brands, very importantly, natural is huge anywhere where you look. And talking about brands, the other thing which is very, very relevant is consumers seem to gravitate towards brands with a purpose. And we are seeing a lot of the Indian and global brands define what is the role in society and the lives of the consumers. And that we believe is a very, very big trend. And it's something which we are addressing with L'Oréal Paris. And we are working, as a matter of fact, with the Bennett Coleman Group on talking about street harassment of women. And finally, the point which Anurag was making, building in agility into our organization in face of the changing consumer, the changing channel behavior, bringing in organization agility into this new reality is going to be a very, very big challenge for all of us over here. It starts with the mindsets of our consumers, our employees, and getting them used to the fact that whatever was the recipe for success so far is not going to be a guarantee of success in the future. So our ability to reinvent ourselves, be agile, change mindsets, reskill. I think I'm repeating now what Anurag has said. So I will defer to my colleagues on the panel and hand it back to you, Suchetana.
Thank you very much, Amit. In fact, yes, you're right. Very, very interesting thoughts from Anurag to start with and from you as well. Yeah, omni-channel is not merely offline and online any longer. And we'll come to that point a little later. Omni-channel has changed and consumer has changed also completely. I'll come to Lalit. This first part of the discussion, we are, talking about what are the lessons that we have learned from COVID and how has the organization adapted? What are you looking for in the future? So Lalit, maybe you can tell us, what are the new ways that you've learned to manage the business, manage your inventory, manage margins, and also how are you managing retail capacity? Because, that retail capacity is, one doesn't know if the entire capacity is being required or not. So how is your business being reshaped really by the pandemic?
Yeah, Alokesh, great to be here. Wishes to all the panelists. Definitely, COVID has been has given a very great and new learnings and thrown a lot of such challenges where the top leaders have to really bring best of their mind and best of their energy to fight it out. We at V-Mart primarily because we are a primary tier 2, tier 3 town operator. And what we saw in smaller town, consumers had fear, but still they are primarily fearless. So the learned people had a larger amount of fear, largely residing in larger metro cities and towns, tier 1 towns. In smaller towns, comparatively, they were lesser. So that was a benefit that as V-Mart we got. But our team, our organization were very, very agile on trying to understand people's need, trying to understand the community need, trying to understand the customer's need in terms of whether the customer is at home. There were customers who were in villages and couldn't come to the cities. We operated 100 trucks to try and reach out to customers, to serve them in the locations where they are located, in the villages where they are located. We really went out all so that we could deliver them at home. We could give them a shopping experience on the trucks. We could actually work with them so that we are close to them. And we knew people wanted to buy, people had money, but they could not come out of their houses because of regulations, because of some problems. And the COVID actually was very low in these towns and these cities. So we took the advantage. We also saw very nicely that we should not have any attrition. We should not allow any of our people to move away in our internal team. So we really took care of them very well. We never asked anyone to leave. We managed our man count so well so that we supported them all the way. We supported our vendor base in trying to, because we understood it is a difficult time for them. And we were with them. We continued paying them in the bad times when we did not receive any kind of money. We made their life easier compared to the rest. So, taking care of people, maintaining the balance sheet, maintaining the inventory levels, maintaining the expenses. These are the few things that our team were able to do, and which I think has been a great initiative that has been done by us.
Right. I'll go to Abhishek from here. So what are your observations during this COVID period that hit India? And also, if you compare it to your global experience of PUMA, what are your takeaways from India? How different was the experience here?
Thanks, Suchetana. Thanks, Alokesh. For us, I think, of course, speed and agility and nimbleness became key. And at that, as we realize in business, that has become most important way to survive the crisis and progress further from the entire pandemic. But I think what strikes to me as most remarkable are two things that has become very, very critical, and it might seem very counterintuitive in some ways. On one side, data, process, technology has become extremely important for businesses in the way that they use technology to run their business and also how they outreach the consumer. Mm-hmm. So on one side, it is a lot about technology. And on the other side, like Lalit said, and the reason I'm saying it's very counterintuitive, it's all about people, it's about how can people, like to the point on reskilling, restructuring, and so that, they can reinvent themselves. It's a lot about people. And at the same time, it is about how empathy in leadership has become extremely important, because it is about how companies can take care of employees during this time. And hence the employees will then get rooted to the company in future. So to me, there are two, in some ways, I say counterintuitive because people and process have always been viewed as trade-offs often. But I think both have come out as something which is extremely important as we lead on during the crisis. Versus globally, I think India during the second quarter, or rather from April, May, June, was very difficult. Versus the rest of the world. I think we went through some real tough times, but the resilience that came in from quarter 3, quarter 4 calendar year in India has been fantastic. So I would say that India's comeback has been very, very strong. Whereas we were hit very badly in Q2 calendar year last year.
Absolutely. We see that in global perception of India as well, right, Alokesh? The international rating agencies changing their stand on us.
Yeah, some very interesting thoughts, Abhishek. In fact, there has been a lot of talk about how India has recovered much better than anybody expected and much better than many of the other markets, right? And Lalit, to your point on the trucks, did it not increase your costs quite a bit?
Incidentally, no, Alokesh. It was just the trucks cost, but otherwise you were able to generate some businesses which was not happening because the stores were anywhere not receiving so much of footfall. So you also generated business. You also increased your brand awareness, and then you actually, when you went out, it showed so much of empathy and it showed so much of closeness with the customer. The customer really appreciated it so well. It was not beyond. It was beyond the cost at that point of time. It was actually reaching out to them, which was more important, more emotional, I felt.
You would have built a lot of customer loyalty with that move. Well done. And so I'll come to Shital now. Shital, lifestyle happens to be my wife's favorite, destination for shopping. And so I spend a lot of time carrying around the stuff that she buys, right, in your stalls. So one of the things that I've also noticed is that lifestyle is very strong in the shopping complexes in malls and all, right? You have these large stores with lots of items, and malls have been among the hardest hit in COVID, right? So, and they're still not fully recovered. Even today, in the DLF mall in Noida, Sector 18, that's next to my office, right? If we had gone there pre-COVID on a Sunday, there's no way you would be able to get in after 12 p.m. After 12 noon, you can't get in. All the parking is full. But now, on a Sunday, I can go in at even 3 p.m. and the parking is like 30% full. How is this playing out for you? So, is this changing the way you're thinking about your presence, about your retail presence in malls or in other areas? Are you going to invest more in single kind of stores in different areas? And what about your supply chain? Any changes there? Tell us how the COVID, what are the lessons you have learned and how it has reshaped your business?
I think I'll come to lessons, in a bit, Alokesh. The pointed question which you asked about the lifestyle. I mean, what you're saying is true. Beyond what Abhishek said, in quarter one, but I think even the quarter two was fairly muted. Particularly, I mean, see, we have multiple formats. We have lifestyle department store. We have a Max Fashions family store. We have home center. So depending on the format which you're talking about, the impact of COVID was varying. But the good news is, Alokesh, that not only the festive, but even festive quarter four, we are realizing that the format like even lifestyle, which is concentrated in metro cities, large dominance of mall presence, we are very happy with the kind of recovery which we are seeing. As I was telling you earlier as well, that we are seeing recoveries now getting into the 90s. So we believe that I think our strategy of particularly for lifestyle department store, a presence in a mall, that's a place where all kinds of consumers congregate, I think is here to stay. We're not really going to modify. Yes, there are other formats like Max, which had the presence in smaller towns like Lalit was talking about, and the recovery has been very, very strong, and we have already crossed the pre-COVID sale. So we are sort of going to stick to our sort of proven strategy of what is right for individual format. And we don't really see that altering because we're seeing that the business is coming back, and probably it's a matter of a quarter or two before we get back to the growth, even on a same store basis. And upcoming festive season in 2021, I'm pretty much sure that we should register growth. Talking about Alokesh, I think I would sort of echo one of the biggest lesson is all retail companies and the brands were always sort of customer-centric, right? This COVID has really emphasized the importance of employee first, right? Or even I would go beyond the employees and the ecosystem, larger ecosystem of vendors, landlords, sort of franchisees, various other partners. It was a tough time, but I think a decision had to be made. Who suffers more? And as an organization, we took very critical call that it is better that we support them in the really trying times, and this will really act as a key differentiator for us as we go forward. And therefore, whether it is being very fair to our employees, rewarding them for the previous year performances, bonuses, promotions, even in a COVID times where financially the situation was pretty fragile, we made sure that it happens. And I'm pretty much sure that it will pay us back in terms of returns. I've already spoken about innovation and agility. I wouldn't belabor that, but I would just end by saying that on a lighter note, I think this COVID has also taught the entire retail fraternity, retail was always about revenue and growth, right? So this has clearly taught us that while top line is vanity, but I think bottom line is sanity, and even more important, cash is reality. This has never been more true than in current times. And I think that's a biggest learning with the retail sector has taken back.
Absolutely. I'll come to Mr. Chaturvedi. Do you agree with Mr. Mehta in what he says? Because you have an assortment of very powerful brands, which are mostly present in malls. Yes, the malls have opened, but have the footfalls returned?
Suchetana, what we've seen is that after the near sort of complete slowdown in April, June quarter, from July, the opening had happened, and September saw Unlock 4 and most things opened in September. And I remember July also had Eid and the Rakhi festival. So that weekend was very, very big. And we saw the first time in that July, I think around 10th of July, that weekend, where we saw actually the consumers walked into the physical retail also, while the online has been growing. So since then, it has been a more or less a V recovery. I mean, most sectors have grown. What I would see, some of the learnings in this period is that, see, there were some trends which were secular trends, and they've got accentuated in these times. So, for example, people were wearing relaxed clothes, and they were moving from a little more formalish, stiffy way of dressing to more relaxed and casual. A lot of travel happens, so people wanted stretch or relax. So that trend was there, and it got further relaxed. So all our casual brands, and most of our portfolio is more
Casual, yeah.
Casual brand, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, US Polo. So we've seen those businesses have really picked up faster. Maybe the wedding has not picked up yet, or formal conferencing has not happened, but otherwise most of the relaxed wear has gone. So that one trend we have seen that has become bigger. Second trend, that digital was growing, online was growing, and in the COVID time, that trend also got accentuated, that while people now, especially in the tech world, let's say in Bangalore, people are now working from home. A lot of multinationals have given directive that till July or September this year, they will be operating from home. So they, they started shopping online because they've left Bangalore and they're not shopping from the mall. So the online trend, which was anyway there, and we were reaching 15% of sale during COVID, it became very, very high. And I think post-COVID, as we exit, it will also be higher than 20% of overall business. So we've seen that trend also becoming strong. Also, I think one of the panelists, maybe Amit, said that strong brands are becoming stronger. So that's, again, it's like a flight to safety. I use his phrase saying that people don't want to try out new things. They want to go to the comfort of a strong brand. And if, like you prefer t-shirts from Tommy, then you would go to Tommy Hilfiger and buy the t-shirt rather than try something else you're not sure of the quality. So I think those are the trends which got accentuated. So we are now working on that. We have our own website called now.com where we sell. We have a tie-up with Flipkart Group for flying machine, where we are working almost like a digital company, a tech company, and trying to grow that. So those trends have got accentuated. I can talk about some more learning, but I can sort of hold it and let other panelists talk, and I can come back to that.
Thank you very much. In fact, that's something that we really like to hear, and the fact that we are on the growth path, regardless of the challenges that still remain, is the positive that we really want to take out of this discussion. But no fake positivity, of course, but we cannot wish away the challenges. They are there. They're not going away very soon, but gradually we can see the return of normalcy. Vineet, Accenture, you are the expert in this group, right? So to you, you have heard everybody speak now. There's a reason why I came to you last, because I wanted to listen into what everybody has to say regarding what they have done in their businesses. Now you tell us what they have done. Is it right? Have they taken all the right steps? Is there something that they missed? What are the key lessons for retailers from COVID for you?
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I mean, this is a very good cue, having heard everyone. And I must say, I mean, I know some of them personally, and the views are very good. I appreciate the performance, the views, and so on. I must also compliment the context set at the beginning. I think the video that was shown and what Anurag said covered a huge plethora of points. So a lot of what we are saying would be repetition. It was a very good nutshell, but good to see. I think what I'll do is I'll recap some of what was said, because that forms the basis for my observation and interpretation, right? And I mean, largely in agreement, yet I have some observation which people can have views, right? So I think business is broadly based on 4 parameters, all of which were touched upon, right? First is customer service and cost efficiency or efficiency, right? And Indian retail was outstanding, a world beater on these 2, right? But these 2 are right for a predictable world, a VUCA world. Challenges on the other 2, which world over everybody was weak, which is resilience, which Suchetana started, and agility, which Amit brought in. But all 4 are at the same level. Now, if you leave aside the first 2 months, and Indian companies or Indian retail was always good at cost efficiency and service, and I choose not to define, I think it'll be obvious, right? But we did a stupendous job on turning around resilience and agility, which is best depicted by the fact that in month 2 of the COVID, we were up and running, right? The supply system was geared up. The demand might have been lagging, but the supply by month 2, leave aside month 1, month 2, month 3 onwards, we were definitely completely in control. And kudos to this entire team. This in turn became possible because of human ingenuity, right? Which in turn is process re-engineering, questioning the holy cows. I mean, we questioned everything, right? All costs, product formulations, right? And that's what leads to this innovation. So having given this compliment, I think now I will want to contrast with global, and that I think is the learnings for us, right? And that's what I will bring in. Our response has been on the back of human ingenuity, as I said, and that should now pivot to structural interventions, which are long-term and automated in nature. And those enablers can be several. Technology and data that people mentioned is just some of them, right? If there is a sector where technology and data lead to intelligence and experience, it is retail, right? So taking and bringing it to next level, institutionalizing what we did. Everything required intelligence, right? If you have to supply goods, supply chain, granular, balanced demand and supply requires intelligence and agility. But it requires a tech backbone and other enablers to do it on a sustained basis. So I think this is my one learning, right? That transcend from human ingenuity to structural intervention for the long term. Second is, while we have one eye in today or one foot in tomorrow, today, also have one in tomorrow. And I think this is also what some of the global companies teach well, that take big bets, bold bets. Bold bets have inherent risks in them. But bold bets means how are we pivoting the business model such that we are stronger tomorrow than we are today. For example, we talked of Omni here, we talked of e-commerce. But the e-commerce consumer and the business behaves differently. If you operate e-commerce from the same rules as you did normal retail, I can assure you there will be dilution of profitability and brands will bleed to death, right? I might exaggerate to make my point, but the need to pivot the business model becomes important. Even within e-commerce, marketplace and D2C behave differently and both have their place to play. The point being that taking bold bets and investing for the future along with sustainable enablers. These are the two learnings that I think we learned from parts of the world, that on back of COVID. See, remember, COVID also unleashes a lot of entrepreneurial energy, galvanizes the organization. So being able to utilize such times and such energy for such long-term purposes, I think is an underutilized imperative.
Right, Vineet. With that eye on future, we'll move to the next segment of this discussion, where we look at demand assessment. And I'll come to Lalit first, Mr. Lalit Agarwal. We looked at your results and we saw that, even as sequential recovery in revenues is encouraging, but your December quarter revenues are still about 16% lower compared to the same period last year. So how and when do you think the industry can shake off the COVID gloom, and how can government policy perhaps be an enabler of that growth? To you, Mr. Agarwal.
Yeah, Suchetana, so definitely we have done better compared to the world position and compared to the overall organized retail position. And but still, there are limitations, and this is in fashion, and fashion is something which is eventful, and people would only consume when there are events in the town, or when there are gatherings, and when the schools and colleges are open and people are able to have vacations and holidays. So we are still waiting for that. But yes, I think there has to also be the driver. There has to be some consumption driver. So what I believe, the lawmakers, and request to the lawmakers, that how could they bring in consumption? How could they drive consumption? Whether, we hear that, in China, the government distributed vouchers, the government distributed gifts, some discounts to try and peak in the consumption. Certainly we could do either by that, or we could do by decreasing some taxes, by decreasing some GST, Rather, the government, what we hear is talking about increasing the GST in apparel from 5% to something more. So we need to be very careful on this moment that we should be actually driving a consumption either by decreasing taxes, by increasing profitability, by increasing employment and spending. And the government spending has to, which I think we have seen a good side of in the budget also, where government spending is coming in, which is a great news. But I think, and then ease of doing businesses. So that if the ease of doing businesses, which we are trying to do, but still on the ground it has not happened. If you could increase more of that, more industrialization can lead to more employment, leading to more consumption. So that's what I think.
Very good points, Lalit, you make, and we'll hope that the government will take note of the suggestions that you give, because it is, you're right, there has been a lot of talk from the government side. The budget has increased its financial outlay, capital outlay, and fiscal deficit is likely to go 9% plus, which is quite unprecedented in recent memory at least. Right. So hopefully that spending on infra and healthcare and other things that the government has lined up will help us, increase, see a little in. The only thing is that
Alokesh, the government has to also see that, how do the people at the small town, where the large amount of population lives, who are below a certain level, how do they work? How do they generate more employment? Because kids in the house, they're growing up and they want to work, they want to go out, they are graduate, they have done some MBAs, but they don't have job to do. So we need to really work fast so that we are able to provide all of that.
Yeah, and what you say is, also indicated by the fact that the household debt to GDP is actually rising, right? And it's 13% now. And it's simply because also COVID has, all you companies have done very well, but there are so many other companies in the economy, right? And many of them have actually cut jobs, let go of people, and people have less money to spend. And so their debts are rising. But anyway, all that is, only hearsay for Abhishek, because his sales have been rising like nobody's business. In the festive season, you grew by some 253% compared to last year is what we read. You'll have to tell us if that is true or not. And you also tell us, is this the new preoccupation with leisure, sports leisure, or what is it that is driving your sales so high?
Well, I think
we expect this demand to continue also.
So I'm personally extremely lucky to be in this category, to be honest, because the consumer trends are clearly, for example, people are spending a lot of time and effort on self-care, on physical and mental well-being, because that's the biggest biggest thing that one can do during this time, right? As the challenges continue. So there is huge tailwinds coming on fitness, on running. I'll give you examples. People are today searching more on running and fitness related keywords on Google, much more than they were doing before the pandemic. And this is when running events are not happening. You don't have the marathons. People are still finding opportunities around themselves to stay fitter. So that's a big positive trend for our industry, for our category. And the other thing is like what Shailesh mentioned, right? It is about being more, relaxed and more, and that's where active wear and athleisure is a trend which is everyone's using. Everyone's working from home, so it's no longer buying formals as much. It is about buying more relaxed wear, more track pants, more shorts, and more t-shirts, which is giving a lot of trend to us. Which is giving a lot of positive movement towards our category. So overall, it's about the opportunity is right now strong in our category, and we are working internally to see how we can latch on to this trend that is happening. So I would say that something that COVID has positively done for India, I think, is that it is really accentuating India's focus on fitness more than ever before. Mm-hmm. So I think which is a great trend for the country.
I'll go to Mr. Amit Jain from here. As Mr. Ganguly was saying that, the focus has been on self-care. We saw I was going through your global results for the final quarter and the full year of 2020. Sales show a 4.9% rise year on year. And in the final 3 months of the year, there has been an overall drop of 4.1% for 2020 versus 2019, but the final 3 years for you actually showed very good results. So do you see this cheer continue in 2021? Also, the results show that sales of professional care products, your luxe products, active cosmetics have done very well. So what does that say about the nature of demand going forward?
Yeah, it's going to be choppy here. So I'll strike the contrarian note over here. There is obviously a lot of optimism after 8 or 9 very difficult months and led by festive demand. And some of it was pent-up demand. Let's be clear about that. We believe in the segments, at least we work in, that the consumers have got used to a new normal of soft consumption. They're conserving cash, and their lifestyles have got more restrained. We have some great examples like Abhishek talked about, which is about new consumer trends around health and wellness. But on the whole, consumers are conservative right now, and we will have to bring back the optimism to consumers, because ultimately retail is led by consumer confidence, and it is going to be led by what is happening in our environment. So thanks to the fact that we work very closely with a 40,000 network of salons all over the country, we can see the huge variances between what's happening to consumption literally on a monthly level. So recently, we suddenly saw the bottom fall out of consumption in parts of Maharashtra, as you saw a spike over there. Correct. So I do believe that it is very early for us to forecast any sustained growth. We will see choppy waters. It will go up and down depending on our ability to manage the pandemic. So I think Lalit made a great point that small town India, they are going, hey, where's the COVID? Where's the problem? The reality is they are lucky that they aren't beset by what the metros are facing. So if I can go beyond the question, Suchetana, I do believe that, our policy on how to deal with the pandemic is going to be one of the biggest determinators of how to get the animal spirits back on consumption. So just an example, and I'm not suggesting that, but Indonesia, instead of vaccinating the older folks, is going for vaccinating those people in the workforce, men and women, so that they come back and become a part of the economy and start the wheels turning again. So rather than a democratic approach to health, I think the government's health policy, getting the private sector involved, and I'm delighted that they've just announced that this morning, is going to be a very key determinant in restoring consumer confidence and thereby demand.
Right. In your results also, we saw that Asia Pacific showed the strongest growth. Do you think that India will continue to play a very strong role as far as boosting your growth for 2021 and beyond is concerned?
Yeah, right now the expectation is, to the point made by my fellow panelists, that India is more resilient. Our consumers have greater tolerance for uncertainty, and there is an initial spark of optimism. So yes, as far as in Asia Pacific, the hopes from the Indian economy, Indian retail, bouncing back faster and stronger than most of the rest of Asia is definitely very high. Having said that, China, given the fact that they have managed the pandemic the best of all in the world, and I know it's heresy given what's happening in the environment, but we have a lot to learn from them. And they are clearly the growth engines for consumption in Asia right now.
Absolutely. And in fact, we have a lot to learn from China in many areas, right? There are so many things that they've been doing, and we've been learning from them for quite some time now. Hopefully, we'll also be able to learn how to scale from China, right? In different areas. And coming to demand, I also went to 2 small towns recently. One, I went to some towns in Kashmir, and I went to Mussoorie, and nobody's wearing masks. You're right. They don't even know that COVID exists, right? You wear a mask, and you're in Gulmarg, and they're like, "What's this guy doing? Ye kya hai? What are you wearing?" So nobody. And consumption is high. People are going around doing their normal jobs, and Kashmir also, tourism is doing reasonably well. As well as you could expect in that state. So my question to Shital is really, the Retailer Association of India, we've read reports that it says that about 85% of pre-pandemic level of sales is going to be achieved, right, in the next 6 months. Now, do you agree with that? Do you think that demand that is there currently is going to sustain that kind of thing? Are we going to reach 85% of last year? In the next 6 months, are we going to do better? What's your view on the whole demand situation, and where is it going to come from? Shital, are you there? Shailesh, you're saying something, but we can't hear you.
Hello, Alokesh, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah. So I think, Alokesh, I mean, one can never hazard a guess, and more so in this COVID times with the sort of threats of second wave coming in and what's happening in Maharashtra and Kerala. But I would still stick my neck out by whatever we have seen, right? And we are seeing even post-festive. First of all, at a Lifestyle International, we are fortunate to have a sort of portfolio, even in fashion, which straddles across from value to economy to premium. And also we have a presence in home, which is growing stupendously in these COVID times. And we are clearly seeing that recovery is sort of rising, and there is a clear V-shaped recovery. And even beyond the festivals, even beyond the sort of end of season cycle, even in the months of February, the recovery is only getting better than what it was. So, I mean, while I would say that one always needs to remain cautious, but I would clearly say that I would be disappointed if we can't get back to the growth, because we are already seeing many of our formats in Q4 of this financial year itself getting into the growth trajectory. And while, on a same store basis, it is still into the sort of getting close to 90% of the pre-COVID levels. But as a result of our expansion, our online business, which is exploding, therefore, as a total full basket organization, we are already seeing some kind of growth coming back in many of our formats. And I would be highly surprised that if it doesn't really get better with the vaccination drive, and as Amit was saying, with what has been announced from 1st March, I think those things are only going to get better unless something really terribly goes wrong. And for sure, a couple of quarters down the line, the festive season which is coming up, I'm pretty much sure that retail industry should get back to the growth for most organizations.
Yes, Mr. Mehta. Another company that is seeing an online explosion is Mr. Chaturvedi's. You saw 230% growth in online sales is what your results show. So, do you share the optimism of Mr. Mehta, Mr. Chaturvedi? Because there could be some gloom because cotton prices, yarn prices have gone up. So, what is your view of the coming few quarters and the whole year?
I'm also personally quite optimistic, like Shital is. I believe my calculation, and I may be wrong, that by June, July, we should hit normal business as what we did in 2019. Quite optimistic. On one side, we're already seeing depletion of inventory in most of the brands. And, today, I'm also talking about supply side. I mean, a lot of our brands have reached historically low levels of inventory, and we are trying to prime the inventory levels that will also fuel demand. So not just external environment, but also what industry did in the last 6 months or not even last year, most of the last year, that we cut down inventory. I mean, in our books, you see, we cut down inventory close to 400 crores. I mean, 300 and plus crores. So, because everybody was very nervous about COVID, and, we were wanting to be very, very safe. But now I think we are moving forward. We are taking a little more calls on building the supply chain, inventory level, freshness. And we have seen in the past that freshness also, this kind of supply also create part of demand. And then if the vaccination drives take shape, and we have done quite well with the management administration of the things in COVID, we must give credit to this government that they were very, very tight when they needed to be. And I hope they are now very liberal and, they distribute vaccines quite fast. I mean, I'm hopeful that they do that as well as they did the tightening. I think things will look better. That's my personal view. Online is definitely doing well. We have our own website. So we have a direct reach to consumers. We have a site called now.com where we sell all our brands. That site itself has seen a big traction during the pandemic, and it's likely to sort of move forward going forward. So I remain fairly optimistic and positive.
Okay. Before I go to Vineet, to all my panelists, if there's something that you want to say, please come in, raise your hand. I mean, let's make it more of a conversation than, both Alokesh and me asking questions. Anyway, I have a question for Vineet, so I'll go to him next. When we have an optimistic bunch of analysts here, but when we look at results, study reports, what we see is that margins are under tremendous pressure. So, in fact, they're shrinking. So, how can technology help retailers when you have margins shrink?
That's a great question. Again, before that, if I can summarize or bring complementary thoughts to the previous question, Suchetana.
Absolutely.
I think we've spent a lot of time on how the demand is shaping. I don't think the overall demand has as much impact. It does, but that's been discussed. As it is the composition of demand, right? The composition changes, which it is, and demand migrates. Yeah, it migrates across geography. So we see, tier 3 towns. That's also because consumers are shifting. It is across categories. I mean, we heard beauty and athleisure over here, and it grows across sectors. In general, right, whatever is related to health and inherent feel goodness, right, will see a boom. Therefore, the imperatives for all leaders are as follows, that wherever there is a demand surge, as Abhishek said, right, he's lucky, then how can we capitalize and make a first mover advantage to gain a lion's share, do it profitably, and then sustain it over a period of time? But equally, there'll be sectors which are affected. I think first recognize that it is under pressure in the medium term, and while trying to grow, the larger imperative is reset the cost base. Shave off fixed costs, sizable 30-40%, as big as 30-40. Variabilize the cost structure, conserve cash, stay healthy, such that when there is a rebound in the medium term, it may not be in the short term, the company is healthier than competitors, and then it's a source of competitive advantage. But it starts by recognizing that revenue will be under pressure and accepting that reality, which sometimes is difficult, right? So there are, in general, two aspects. As I said, health, hygiene, wellness related will boom. But the capability which will make this boom is technology, which is your second question. So if there is one driver, there is an enabler, which is technology. Now, technology permeates everything. Technology now gradually is, transcending into digital. Digital only means newer age technologies, multiple of them converging and coming together. And technology can be a force for good or a source of competitive advantage, both to drive growth as well as to conserve cash or lower cost. Since you ask for cost, right, maybe, and growth is what I'll leave the growth discussion to my panelists, or maybe speak towards the end. Since you asked about cost, I'll restrict myself to cost. Cost, as I said, part of it is restructuring, remove fixed cost. But the other part is also optimize a variable cost. Variable cost means knowing what works and knowing what doesn't work. And the answer comes from technology. Let me take two examples. Marketing, right? I mean, we have the famous age-old saying, half of my marketing spend doesn't work, but more importantly, I don't know which half. Now, that might be a cliche, but today we have a much better understanding, yet that ability is underutilized. And if there is a place which digital gives us, digital marketing or e-commerce, it is knowing which rupee exactly works, which consumer is targeted, what is the impact, and therefore how should I second rupee, and so on. So this is an example of digital marketing. But take supply chain on the back end. There is a trade-off between service and cost, as we mentioned. But newer age technologies like digital supply chain, what they allow you to do is segment the supply chain and serve the same demand at a lower cost and inventory, which means it makes the overall system more efficient, but that requires an integrated technology stack at the back end and data firing this. So these are two examples of marketing ROI and supply, or including manufacturing or IX.O driving everything. Gradually, what we said, technology, digital, and data will morph into AI-led everything. Everything would be AI driven, whatever you can think of today, a great degree of automation. And that is when human ingenuity will really get unleashed, and there would be an opportunity to combine data with human, but that's the next wave. We can leave that for the future. For now, it's data technology powering everything, including cost lowering.
Thank you, Vineet, and we'll come back to technology later on in the discussion. No, I'm really enjoying this brainstorming.
Alokesh, I just wanted to understand also from Vineet that
Yes.
how do we embed technology in the organization? That's not about technology, bringing in technology, but also bringing in the culture of technology, bringing in the culture of adoption. How do we, that people do want to have every kind of technology in their hand, but when it comes to application of technology, we at times have the challenges. Now, what are the suggestions? And I would want to draw attention of all the panelists. What have been their experiences? What have they done so that the adoption becomes much faster?
Right. I mean, that's a great question, because there's a saying, technology moves fast, organizations move slowly. And therefore, the bottleneck is more internal, right? And that manifests. I'll give you an example how it manifests. In this discussion, there it was quoted that marketplaces have larger portion of e-commerce compared to digital direct to consumer. That is not the case abroad, right? But that in turn is because the biggest challenges, right, in making economics work is customer acquisition cost and last mile logistics. And both can be solved significantly by AI, right? In fact, some of the marketplaces, metric is how much of the demand, and more than 1/3 can come from product recommendation. I mean, that's AI, right? Mm-hmm. Can I check my product before the consumer has placed the order and take it near the consumer? So this is real, but the bottleneck is what Lalit. And that requires, so there are 2-3 learnings that we have, right? Some things are clear, some things are not clear. And I can say both of the parts, right? First is that it has to be a management and leadership priority. This cannot be a bottom-up, right, drive. It has to be top-down, and companies make a mistake. It is a significant change management. If it's not a leadership priority, might as well not undertake and burn the money, right? So that's the first learning. Second learning is that you require to allocate capital, and that's what we must learn. Now, technology as a percentage of overall revenue, Indian companies are in the range of 0.5 to 1%. Best in class in India will be 1.5%. And they are truly best in class. But 1.5 to 2% is pretty much the global average. So it begins with we not spending our money. Now we do have lower scale, but what you can do to counter is focus. Right, there are companies like L'Oréal. When I read their annual report, they have decided to own the space of consumer front end and experience. Not only are they a large company, but that capital outlays, when concentrated on one area, further becomes magnified, and you see the results there in front of yourself. And I have deep respect for that. So to begin with, leadership priority, capital outlays, focus and concentration. Win on anything. You want to win in RTM, marketing, up to you, right? You want to win in supply chain, manufacturing, analytics, AI, up to you. But focus. Place where jury is still out, right? Research says that there has to be a force who holds together this change. There is a research says it is a 50-50 split for owning of or making the CDO. So there should be a CDO, but should the CDO be an insider, homegrown person who can navigate the change and be the extended arm of leadership, right? So, and therefore support top-down change with middle out. That requires an insider versus an outsider who can come in, ruffle feathers, and an expert. Given that expert,
my question is more towards people who are at the senior and the mid-level leadership, and who not only are technology drivers, but are business drivers. And how do we bring in adoption in those business drivers, which is a kind of cultural piece, and which is a kind of, those senior people have spent in the industry maybe 15 years, 20 years, and they have lived life in their own way, and they generated businesses in their own way. They've got a fundamental habit of doing the work. And how to bring in more of that?
Lalit, your questions are very valid. The only thing is that, now if Vineet, as an analyst and an expert, starts talking on this, we'll run out of our entire time. So we'll send you Vineet's number. Why don't you call him?
I'll answer offline, Lalit. I'm happy to have the word. They are very important.
These are very good, very relevant questions. Absolutely. And, I can understand from your point of view. that you need them answered, absolutely. And we'll request Vineet to get in touch with you and understand that. We'll also take the views of others. We'll move to the next phase of the discussion because we've got about 30 minutes left. And the next phase is really about the consumer. Ultimately, whatever technology you're deploying, what are you in business for? You're in business to sell, right? The fundamental bottom line of business here that you're there to sell, you're there to make profit. That is the bottom line. Everything else, rotates around this reality. So you have to understand customers. Now, for example, and this omni-channel strategy is something that has now become par for the course. But there are certain, like Shital was telling us initially, there are many variations of the omni-channel strategy that are now emerging, right? For example, we met some jewelry companies. In fact, just day before yesterday, I was talking to Krishnaya Chetty, Dr. Hayagriv, who's the owner of Krishnaya Chetty Jewelers in Bangalore. And even Tanishq, we spoke to, Ajay Chawla, who heads the jewelry division. And both of these companies are actually, Krishnaya Chetty, for example, for its premium and high-end customers, they have gone and set up shop within the home of the customer where they expect about a crore or crore plus kind of sale, right? Really rich guys. So they go there, set up store over there, bring all their stuff into their homes and get them to see and decide. It's like the old days, when somebody used to come with a stack of saris and lay them out on your bed and say, choose which one do you want.
Alokesh, for small ticket retail buyers like us, Tanishq, for example, has this great app where you can actually project your face, check a jewelry out, and then perhaps not buy it there. If you're still confused, you can then go to the store, you have a product number, and you can pick it up from there. That is what the entire experience has become, right?
So there's a lot of these bridge models, that are coming up. So now omni-channel is not just do you have a website and do you have a store? There are many other things in between that are happening also, right? So, for example, Abhishek, your product, while you do a lot of lifestyle stuff, but the primary product I would imagine are the shoes, right? And while online sale of shoes are climbing, I personally would never buy a shoe online because I want to see if it fits, if it's comfortable, if I'm able to, till I walk and run and wear that shoe in your store for 5 minutes and understand that, yeah, it's comfortable, it's feeling good, feeling right on my feet, I'll never buy. But there will be other category of consumers who are buying online. I have many friends who buy shoes online. I can't imagine how they do it. But what's your omni-channel strategy? You must be doing sales, online as well as in the store. But are there any variations? What are the trends? Are customers merely shopping online just to look at the shoes, and the majority of people are still coming to your store? Tell us about this.
And also, what Alokesh is trying to find out is that how can he buy a pair of shoes online and perhaps check it out virtually also, wear it and run. So what are your solutions for that?
So I think, Alokesh, even before COVID, consumers themselves are always omni-channel, businesses were not. Consumers would, discover a product on social, try out in a store, maybe finally buy it on a marketplace or buy it on a brand.com site. Consumers are always moving from one to the other on where they would get recommendations. Consumers were always omni-channel, right? The problem was, depending on which organization it is, that organizations are structured in silos. There is a social media marketing team. There is a brand marketing team. There is a e-commerce team, and there is a offline store management team. There is a multi-brand team. So there would not be a unification of approach with regards to customer experience. I think what companies need to now do, our organizations need to do, is to lay the land out so that consumers can seamlessly interface this, which they were anyways doing. So. And it's easier said than done, right? Omni-channel is, I feel, sometimes and Shital and I have had this conversation a lot of times, like, even supplying from a store has its own challenges, or supplying from a store for an online demand has its own challenges. But I think most importantly is the unification of approach, because the customers are anyways shopping with their own, and you might be shopping, your behavior might be something else, somebody else might be, going to a store, trying out a product and shopping online, or the reverse, right? And social, today, how people look at an Instagram page and how they discover product, share it with their friends. It's all how communities are getting created on digital. So I think at the end of it, it is about how you create a single view of the customer experience across your organization, and that is extremely important. And to this, Lalit's point on how do you embed this in an organization which has been used to working in a very traditional manner in the past.
Right. I'll take that question to Mr. Jain. Yeah. Online has been a big growth area for your company. So how do you view omnichannel? What does that mean to you? I've been having a severe hair problem, but I don't know which exact problem to pick from you. I really don't know, because I've been buying bottles, but the, next door a neighbor tells me to buy the other bottles. I don't know which one to actually buy. How can you help me?
Well, in that case, we are doing a poor job of reaching our very, very important consumers, Suchetana. So thanks for the feedback. But building on what Abhishek said and your question, Alokesh talked about the shop going to the consumer. So if the consumer is not coming to the brand, the brand has to reach the consumer. It is inevitable that this is going to be a low-touch economy. And at any point of time, you'll have to deal with the consumer being in a very, very safe mode. So to answer your question, what L'Oréal has invested on globally in mission of being a beauty tech company is virtual try-ons. So your point about hair advice, we have invested deeply in e-consultations. So along with our retail partners, and I can see Shailesh and Shital, both of them, along with them, we are prototyping virtual try-ons. You can get in front of a camera, zero touch, look at what are the different color choices you have for your hair, or what is the right foundation which you can have on your skin, and a whole host of applications on makeup as well. So this is going to be the low-touch economy, and those organizations which are investing, the brands and the retailers together in giving the consumers the safety of low-touch virtual try-ons from the safety of their homes, brings you into the whole behavior of the robo consumer. Yeah, so robo as in research online, purchase offline, or the other way around. And our hope is to work with our partners, even if consumers are researching online, how do we get them to purchase offline? Yeah, and we do that by giving them the safety of virtual try-ons, e-diagnosis, e-consultations, and these are available on our websites and on our partner sites now.
Fantastic, and it makes me really wonder, all the different innovations and innovative ways we are reaching out to consumers today. How much of that would have really existed if COVID had not hit? Is something that I tend to think about. But I suppose eventually we would have done all these things, because it's not only about low touch; it's about giving the customer a great experience. Which brings me to Shailesh. Shailesh, one of the things I really wonder, you make some fabulous, products. Your brands are really very strong. Everywhere we go, your brands are there. But they're mostly like ready-made stuff, right? Ready-made shirts and all, which look very attractive. So apart from the omni-channel, there's also the thing about personalization, right? And customization for the consumer, right? So what sort of personalization can a ready-made, apparel maker like yourself get into? Is it? Can you seriously do it? And what also is your omni-channel strategy?
You're on mute.
See, there are two parts here. One is on personalization, other is on omni-channel. So yes, as far as personalization concerned, India is still very early stage, but I've seen globally a lot of practices, and I can quickly discuss here. So for example, the highest touch point is Japan, where suit is through a 3D machine, is then the data. You stand almost like at the airport in a screening machine, and it transfers your body dimensions to a computer, and then it makes a suit for you. And for your wedding or some special occasion, you get a suit which is really based on your actual body dimension. And taking this lingerie also is a very, very big business in Japan, where they use 3D technology to create a personalized thing. That these are like really the high point. These are not seen most of the world. What is seen now is denim side, where people are doing some unique washes or, using, there is a famous store in New York, I go and buy 3x1 where they select the fabric and they make it for you immediately, with the washes, etc. Sneaker, PUMA Abhishek can talk about, but I've seen his competition talk a lot about, and I'm sure PUMA also is doing it aggressively to co-create your own sneakers. So some of these practices are happening in India.
Mm-hmm.
We're also looking at, some of these practices, but they're not in India as yet. Let me be very honest about it. Coming to omni-channel side of the question, see, there are two parts now. There is a one view of the inventory and there is a one view of the consumers. Now the whole omni-channel is sitting in between these two broad sort of directions. So what is the one view of the inventory? So earlier in the past, let's say 10 years back, a customer went to a department store, let's say Shital's Lifestyle, and they saw a line, let's say Tommy Hilfiger, they saw a sort of assortment there. And they went to the Tommy store in a mall, they saw maybe a different assortment, some common, but some different. Or in some other channel in a prestige shop or commercial street, MBO trade, they saw another assortment. What omni-channel is now bringing in is that it's linking up the entire inventory, whether it's in our stores or in our warehouse or in a Myntra's warehouse or in a retailer, and we are linking up through technology all these inventory. So when a consumer goes to the screen, let's say they go to the now.com and they click a brand, US Polo, they get a whole global view of the inventory, whether inventory lying in my warehouse, somebody else's warehouse, doesn't matter, but consumer get that choice, assortment, and hopefully we will solve this problem of size search. So today a lot of problem is that I like something, but my size or my fit is not available. By doing this one global view of inventory, we're trying to solve that problem. The other side is that we also, Omni is helping us create one view of the consumer. So for example, a consumer, when he went to the store, he got some offer or he got an assortment. When he go to department store, he got something else, as simple as a CRM point. The department store had a different method and the brand EBO exclusive store had its own method. Somebody else had some other method. Now, what's going to happen? It's not happened. Inventory view has happened already, but we also now targeting how we see consumer as one. So when somebody wants to, one individual, let's say Alokesh wants to buy a t-shirt from Tommy Hilfiger. Now, whether he goes to a department store or an online portal, Myntra or now.com or tommy.com or whatever, he should get the same unified common experience, because then it's a relationship between that brand and Alokesh. It's not about the channel or other. So we are working towards that we get one view of the consumer and we get one view of the inventory. And the omni-channel sitting in between is trying to facilitate this whole unified experience.
Right. Mr. Chaturvedi, one way of looking at it, yes, is the experience part of it. But I'll come to Mr. Mehta here, where, a big strategy for you for some time has been incentivizing the customer. So, you make a purchase, you go to a store, you make a purchase at Lifestyle, you get a discount voucher for an online purchase. So has that strategy helped you generate more demand? Has it helped you understand the customer better?
I think, Chetna, we have moved sort of, considerably ahead vis-a-vis those days. Now, in fact, we provide in our stores, let's say, for example, we are piloting and now it's getting scaled up. The digital shopping sort of assistant, let's say Max store, you go, there is a Max Buddy app, you sort of scan the QR code and actually right now in-store hyper-personalized real-time coupon is generated to you, knowing the backend works that, okay, Chetna has come there and you are the customer and your shopping journey and shopping behavior has been like this. You need this offer before even you get to the cash till. It's a real-time coupon which is given. Or even from your own mobile phone, actually, sort of if you see the product and the size is missing, you can from your own mobile phone through this kind of a progressive web app, which is there, the Max Buddy, you could find out whether the same size available anywhere in the network. You can actually do your self-checkout from your own phone. You just need to detag, right? I mean, and get the carry back, which we will assist you. But otherwise, you can complete the entire experience on your own. So I think personalization is because in very early days, we used to also give this generating certain traffic to our online store. We used to recruit customers and give sort of offers. But today, I think increasingly, I want to sort of make one point, that the entire thing is omni. I think it's just let's make it very simple. And Vineet alluded to that. I think one of the biggest challenge everybody's going to face is that you know, it's very, very important that customer has a unified experience of your brand, whether it is a store, whether it is your .com or your marketplace. And today, a large number of businesses and brands, if you see that, ask the customer why they should, why they shop on a marketplace XYZ, answer would be that I get best offers, discounts, etc., etc. Today, a lot of people justify it by saying that we create a separate line, we're liquidating old products. But I think that really customer doesn't know that, right? So creating that unified sort of an experience of how your brand comes across, right? And therefore, Omni strategy has two legs to it. How your store is going to become more sort of a digitally enabled, engaging, sort of some of the learnings from the online store, as well as how your online stores, including marketplace, are going to take the learnings and the leaf out of the brand and the store which you represent and sort of behave accordingly, right? So I think online is increasingly has to become like an offline, and offline will have to take a leaf out of digital, right? And that unification is very, very critical. Otherwise, you're going to see huge friction, as we go forward and as each of these channels scale up.
Right. In fact, I was very interestingly listening to both of you, and both you and Shailesh. And one of the things that I really miss when I go to a store, and Lalit, I hope you are going to come back because my next question is for you. And all right. So Shailesh, whenever I go to a store to buy a trouser, Shailesh and Shital, both of you, I find that there is a 32 size and there's a 34 size, but there's no 33 size, and my size is 33. So, 32 is too tight and 34 is too loose. So I don't know how you can customize that, because it also adds to your cost. Like if you have more and more sizes and more variations, you need to have stocks of everything. So
maybe you should do what Old Navy does, right? They have a plus size, 32 plus. So it's a little larger than 32, but a little smaller than 33.
Alokesh, you will be, I don't know, you'll be surprised that 50% of trousers in India are still tailor-made. Tailor-made is a very large business, and I think that's a source of growth for us, the ready-made brands. And we still believe that once that 50% tailor-made becomes 30%, that business is coming to the tailor-made segment, and we need to offer some of these services that you mentioned on fits and flexibility. I think that is why the Indian retail business is poised for secular growth, because there is still, we are only at 10% of the business, or in some category only 20% of the segment. It's still a lot of market size to convert to.
Yeah, it's good to know. Lalit, I was wondering what kind of an omni-channel strategy would you have? So because from what I understand, and you can always correct me if I'm wrong, many times journalists are wrong, but sometimes we are right. Your main markets seem to be UP and Bihar, right? So what sort of, consumer trends are you seeing there? That's a slightly different kind of market compared to, let's say, Mumbai or Delhi, right? So is it still firmly, is it omni-channel? Are you seeing similar kind of trends in those markets, in your core markets that are there in the major metros?
Yeah, definitely Omni is the future, and that's what V-Mart has adopted. And we are also trying to take customer Omni. Definitely these customers, it's difficult for them. They are largely consumers who shop only a couple of times in a year. So they don't earn too much. They don't spend too much. They feel spending on apparel is like an investment for them. And they don't want to take their investment decision only by looking at photograph. So that's the kind of activity which exists today. But still, things are moving up. We have a Omni platform. We have made a technology which is opening all our 275 doors for replenishment or for delivery to the customers. So what we have done is, we try and service the customer who lives nearby the store. Maybe a lady living in the village, which is 20 kilometers from our store, and could not come to our store, or is not getting the accessibility to come to our store, can order online and get the product delivered to them, can come to the store and collect, can do what we call robo research online, buy offline. And so all those stuff are there. And we are seeing penetration growing, especially because India is young, and the youth population with the digital intervention is definitely growing. And apart from Omni, I think, it's also going to be ultimately customization. It's going to be a little more customization, because India being so diverse, how do you bring in algorithm to understand the customer's need? And I was reading about a online company called Stitch Fix, which generate a curated product for looking at the sizing, and we were talking about size, looking at size, budget, style. There are opportunities in the market which one could definitely integrate, and that's the future. That's how we integrate all together and then give customers those seamless experience of offline, online is what we would. Definitely today it may look a little less penetrated, but future is going to be more and more. And that's how we are taking it in the organization. We are definitely not leaving any stone unturned. Small town, definitely, because they don't buy very often, is my perspective, because they don't have a standardized product that they buy from, or they don't buy so-called standardized product or brand which Shailesh sells or maybe Abhishek sells. So these are, primarily kind of private labels or non-standardized products. So the customer's trust on those products is also very low right now. They trust on, whether I'm getting the right product delivered and what will happen with my money. Yeah. So it's also low right now. Yeah. So it'll come up. It is definitely going to come up.
Thank you, Lalit, for that. We have about 37 questions that have come in from the audience. Very interesting questions. I'll take one from there, and I'll go to Vineet with that question. The question is actually for all of you, but I'll go to Vineet. The question is asking, where do you guys see retail in the next 5 years? If it's omni-channel, then what are the variations that you see? What is the strategy that you see for the future?
All right. I think the one answer I'll have is Omni-Led Personalization. But the definition of Omni would be bigger than what we discussed just now, which was one view of inventory, single view of customer, and uninterrupted interactions across channel. That's what we discussed. Yeah. But what I will add on to is that the main change which will happen is, can retail points from being point of transaction or sale to point or exchange of experience. Every interaction is an opportunity of experience and embedding. I mean, when Lalit spoke of Stitch Fix, it's another word now. And the answer to that is personalization. Now, personalization can happen across the value chain. Product customization or personalization is the last leg. It might be difficult for us and nascency, but personalization is also across the other parts of the value chain, such as promotion, marketing, knowing the consumer, and that in turn requires an uninterrupted view across channel and stitching together a lot of information outside your own domain. Now, CRM data, service data, people stitch together. But consumer, a large part of consumer is outside the brand ecosystem. So can we ingest that data, information, and stitch together? Only then can you have a true single view of a customer and then treat customer as segment of one, maybe through hyper segmentation and so on. But that again brings us to technology, because you need a base such as CDP and AI-led automated stitching and segmentation to be able to do this. But yes, hyper personalization is the trend of the future that I see.
So there's a question directly for Amit, and interesting question. And the question is FMCG direct to consumer, D2C, is it still in experimental stage? Will D2C ever take off? And did COVID change this thinking on traditional distribution?
Somebody has already made the point about the fact that India, where it differs from some of the other markets, is our D2C is relatively lower, and our marketplaces are very big. I think Vineet was making that point. Now, and Shailesh just talked about the fact that we have to have a seamless consumer journey. So we believe as the consumer now becomes a fluid consumer, they go online, offline completely fluidly. We don't know whether they're researching online or offline. The ROPO bit which Lalit spoke about, bring it all together. The importance for brands to create a seamless consumer journey is going to be critical. And the role of D2C over there becomes paramount. And D2C, not just as a standalone, but D2C integrated with creating a consumer journey, which could start with researching, consultation, customization to the point Vineet made, and then leading it seamlessly into retail. So it's not D2C standalone, but D2C as an integrated part of a larger ecosystem, which we believe is going to be the trend, and it's going to be collaborative in nature.
Right. We're really running out of time, but with one question, one really topic, I'll go to all of you. You know, as work from home eases, people go back to office, they go back to the malls, they go back to the brick and mortar stores for shopping. What do you think has changed critically and changed forever? I'll go to Abhishek first.
You're on mute.
You're still on mute.
I think at the organization's level, I think work from home will continue, and I think hybrid working will definitely be a future. I think that's very clear. 100% going back to office, I think, is not going to happen ever again. And what
Abhishek, I asked that, you know, as it eases, as we go to a hybrid model and people perhaps go back to the stores more often, like Alokesh definitely will go to a store to buy his shoe next. So then what do you think is the one thing?
Marked out all the PUMA stores around me.
So what do you think is the one thing that has critically changed forever?
Well, I think the way we approach our business, you know, we used to all do long-term planning, you know, in fashion.
Yeah.
And Shailesh and Shital will say that, will corroborate that. We always plan 1 year ahead, right?
Yeah.
I mean, product cycles are too long. One has to now look at how can you crash the product cycle, because you exactly don't know 1 year ahead. So one needs to have a very, very close eye on the next quarter and plan their business. And I think that's fundamentally is changing the way we all are looking our planning for future.
Same question, Mr. Chaturvedi, yes.
Abhishek, is that we also invested heavily into flexi manufacturing right now. In fact, our group also has a textile company. So we're working closely with our textile side of our group and trying to bring in flexible production where, you know, the lead times can be crashed and we can offer more choices to consumer, knowing what the trends are. So that I sort of agree to what Abhishek is saying, and that we will all work towards a more of flexible offering from our side.
Do you think the casualization trend is here to stay?
Oh, it's accentuating big time, and it's a biggest trend, to be honest.
Chetna, if I have to sort of butt in, I think another thing which is probably changed forever is that we need to remember that over the last 12 months, large number of consumers have tested online for the first time, even if it is food or grocery, right? And therefore, the role of the store has changed forever. I think I would really take a big, bold bet on this, that their expectation from what happens in the store has changed forever. They would demand now a lot more sort of a real-time, personalized, call it what have you, frictionless, digitally enabled, and a lot more engaging experience rather than walk into the store, buy a product and make the payment and leave. I think that those days are well and truly over. And all organizations will have to really work towards how do they sort of make sure that and really think about why does the store exist, right? Beyond what it was supposed to do. I think that to me is fundamentally has changed.
Amit, you'd agree with that?
Can't help but agree. It is obvious. 200% is there. And in addition to that, I want to touch upon Suchetna's point about what's changed for the organization. Gone is the era of the straitjacketed workforce, 9 to 5, 5 days, 6 days a week, as the case might be. It is going to be the era of the liquid workforce. So people will move in seamlessly in and out of the workplace or at home. You will see a lot of the incoming gig economy. You'll be able to shop for skills online. People will be able to work from wherever they are. So access to talent is going to dramatically improve. So I do believe that what we will see is that the organization models will start moving more towards acquiring skill sets as and when they're required. And there's going to be much more agility of the workforce and the talent base. So many more opportunities, but will require huge agility, both from the talent as well as the organization.
Lalit, what has changed forever?
So, what we believe, post-COVID, India is going to become more broader, not concentrated to major cities. India is going to spread out to smaller towns and smaller cities also.
Of course.
People love their home now. People would want to stay near to their home. Consumers, we'll find consumers also more in those areas. We'll also find better people in those areas. So I believe, accessing good people accessing good markets, accessing good properties is going to be better post the COVID environment.
Vineet, quick word from you, and then we'll go to Anurag for the closing comments.
All right. I think it's digital and innovation-led fluidity in everything. So be it the consumer, I want what I want, how I want, where I want. So that's fluid. Including for the organization, so flexi manufacturing, workforce, they are all elements of fluidity, business model reimagining. So everything fluid, but that's only possible through innovation enabled by digital.
Right. We've absolutely run out of time. It's been a great discussion, and therefore I'll like to call Anurag. Anurag, you're still there? Switch on your yes, great. For your closing remarks, and if you would sum up the entire great discussion that we've had.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I loved the conversation. Absolutely enriching the diversity of view that we got. And no, I was trying to take notes, and then I realized, wow, I mean, I can't write so much. But if I were to try and summarize what I heard was, look, everything is changing. The composition of demand is changing, right? So we spoke about casualization versus formals. We spoke about health and wellness, right? So that's changing. Demand, the customer is changing. The customer's behavior is changing. They're going omni-channel. They are obviously wanting seamless experiences. They want, brands will need to address that. The role of technology is changing, but fundamental to all of this is still our employees. They need to reskill. They need to obviously evolve and adapt to these. So, I mean, what's not changing? Liquid and agile workforce, like Amit said, that's what we need. So, right from our employees to our capabilities around, new technologies and digital to the experiences that we are delivering to our consumers, and obviously the composition of demand, everything is changing. And then what we overlay on that is obviously, like Lalit said, look, my customer value fashion is, they consider this as an investment. How will they behave? They are not necessarily completely omni-channel today. Progressively, they will be. But if they are buying twice a year, what capabilities as an organization that I need to build? Versus, beauty, where Amit is clearly building a very technology or a beauty tech business, as I may call it. So Shital mentioned about the fact that they're already offering a lot of the digital enablers in the store, and the role of the store will evolve. So, I mean, clearly it's not that, it's about a store in a high street or a mall and in a metro versus a tier 2. I mean, those definitions will now cascade into far higher variations, where you could have stores which are only offering experience stores, which could be just doing delivery, the robo and all the other options which are possible. So the complexity and the challenge for businesses clearly is going up. And consumer, because it's driven by consumers, as industries, as businesses and companies, we don't have a choice. We do have to find the right mix for our business. What's the right solution? Where should we focus on first more? There are all parts which are continuously moving. But I mean, I just really love the conversation, and having such a great panel and all the diverse views. It was absolutely fantastic. So thank you to all the panelists for your views. I think I really love the conversation, and thank you, Alokesh and Suchetana, for being such a wonderful host. I mean,
thank you, Anurag.
Thank you, Anurag.
Very
It's
kind.
time now for the group photograph for all of us. So Nidhi, are you ready? We all need to look into the camera and don't say retail, right? Say cheese.